Hey guys, welcome to our part 3 college football bowl breakdowns for the best bets. We'll be looking at the Wednesday, December 27th games through the Friday, December 29th games. Like I said, this is the bets portion. So we'll be looking at who's going to win, lose, what we predict the final scores will be, the over-unders, spreads, and the money lines. There's about 41 total bowl games. We did break this into 4 parts. This will be part 3, so if you want to look at any games before this, just go to part 1 and 2, and part 4 should be coming out later this week. Go ahead and hit that like button and subscribe, and kicking things off for the best bets portion, we'll be looking at our first game on Wednesday, December 27th at 2 p.m. on ESPN. We have 6-6 Virginia Tech versus 11-2 Tulane. This is the Military Bowl presented by GoBowling.com. Virginia Tech comes into this game. They're 10.5 point favorites here, and the over-under is 44.5. You're probably wondering why the 6-6 team is 10.5 point favorites over the 11-2 team. Well, it's basically because Tulane's head coach, Willie Fritz, has gone on to Houston, and Michael Pratt also did declare for the NFL draft. So he's gone. So the coach is gone. A lot of the coaching staff is gone, and their quarterback is also gone. So Tulane's leaderless in the coaching booth and on the field. Looking at the total team stats here, Virginia Tech does average 28.6 points per game. Tulane 26.8 points per game. And on defense, Virginia Tech gives up 24.3 points per game. Tulane gives up 18.9 points per game. Tulane definitely has the better team, but they have a lot of missing pieces, both to other jobs and to the NFL. And Virginia Tech can run the ball pretty well. They average 175.4 points per game. So look for them to keep the ball on the ground here. Try to keep the ball out of Tulane's backups' hands. I have Virginia Tech getting the win, 31-20. So I actually have them covering the spread, and I'm going with the over as well here. The next game that we'll be looking at is at 5:30 p.m. on ESPN. 8-4 North Carolina Tar Heels versus 8-4 West Virginia Mountaineers. This is the Duke's Mayo Bowl. West Virginia comes into this game as 6.5 point favorites here, and the over-under is 54.5. So both teams are 8-4, each team trying to get 9 wins. For the Tar Heels, they do have Drake May. He's a top 5 NFL pick. He did declare for the draft, so their main playmaker is going to be gone. That's a massive loss for them because they'll be going with their backup. But they do have Hampton at running back. He's a beast. He's closing in on 1,500 yards and 15 touchdowns. So they're definitely going to be looking to have to run the ball here. They're going to be pretty lacking in the pass game, so they'll try to control the pace of the game on the ground. West Virginia, props to them for getting the 8-4. A lot of people did not have this team making a bowl this season, but now they're in search of their 9th win. Looking at the team stats here, Tar Heels average 36.6 points per game. West Virginia, 31.6 points per game. And on defense, Tar Heels give up 27.1 points per game. West Virginia gives up 27.5 points per game. So if they had Drake May, I would go with the Tar Heels. But the fact is they do not have Drake May. That's a massive loss. We don't know anything about the backup quarterback. So obviously we're kind of going into this game blind right now. But I do have the West Virginia Mountaineers getting the win here, 30-27. So they're getting the win. They're not covering the spread, and I'm going with the over. The over here was 54.5, and West Virginia was favored by 6.5. So not covering the spread, but going with the over. The next game that we're looking at 8 p.m. on Fox, you have number 15 Louisville sitting at 10-3 versus 7-5 USC. This is the DirecTV Holiday Bowl. Louisville comes in as 7.5 point favorites here, and the over-under is 57.5. Louisville. Obviously, Louisville's coming off of that pathetic showing versus the Florida State Seminoles with their third-string quarterback. Louisville, obviously, they have a pretty decent offense. They have a pretty decent defense, but the last 2 weeks, they kind of laid an egg for 2 straight weeks. But this is a very well-coached team. A lot of people did not have them getting to 10-3, so they had a very good season, and they did build their team through the transfer portal. USC obviously started the year top 10, completely fell off the tracks. Caleb Williams, so the reigning Heisman champ from last season, he's now gone. He did declare for the draft, so he's not going to be playing at the quarterback position. That's a massive loss for USC because every single game has been a shootout. Now they are without their main playmaker. They did have a lot of players leave to the transfer portal, so they're missing a lot of pieces right now. They did fire Alex Grinch as the defensive coordinator, but that's a full year too late. Looking at the team stats here, Louisville does average 30.9 points per game. USC averages 41.8 points per game. On defense, Louisville gives up 19.7 points per game. USC gives up a whopping 34.9 points per game. That's a lot right there. So they're definitely, every single game is a shootout with them. But that's why Louisville is the favorite here right now, because USC has issues on defense and Caleb Williams is gone. So they do have to reset this team going into next year. I have Louisville getting the win here. 35-30. So not covering the spread, and I'm going with the over. I can definitely see a scenario where the Trojans win. Do not underestimate Lincoln Riley, but they will be going with their backup quarterback. His name is Miller Moss. He was a 5-star quarterback, so obviously there's a lot of praise for him, but there's a lot of issues with this team. There's a lot of holes that they have to fill. That's why I have the Cardinals getting the win here. The next game we're looking at 9 p.m. on ESPN, we have 7-5 Texas A&M versus number 20 Oklahoma State sitting at 9-4. This is the Tax Act Texas Bowl. The Aggies are 2-point favorites here, and the over/under is 53.5. For A&M, obviously they did fire Jimbo Fisher. They had a whole lot of players move to the draft. I'm sorry, not the draft, to the transfer portal. So there's a lot of players missing, especially on the defensive side of the ball, and they do have a pretty stout defense. They did hire Mike Elko as the coach, but obviously he's not coaching this game, but he will be watching this game because he wants to look at what he has on the roster and how these players play. So they're definitely going to want to play well because they want to set a good example for Elko going forward. They want to make themselves look good. You know, this is their chance to kind of shine for him going into next season. For Oklahoma State, they're coming off of that drubbing from Texas, but they do have Ollie Gordon. He's a beast at running back, probably the number 1 running back in the country right now. He does lead the nation in rushing. He's closing in on 1,700 yards, and he has 20 rushing touchdowns. So this guy's a beast. But basically, outside of him, they really don't have anything else going for him. So their quarterback that they have, Bowman, he has 13 touchdowns, 12 picks. So they definitely have a lot of turnovers as a team. Looking at the total team stats here, the Aggies, they average 34.2 points per game. Oklahoma State averages 29.5 points per game. And on defense, the Aggies give up 21.3 points per game. Oklahoma State gives up 29.0 points per game. I have the Aggies getting the win here. I have them winning 28-24, covering the spread, and I'm going with the under as of right now. Can Oklahoma State win this game? Definitely, but they have to win this game on the ground, running the ball with Gordon, control the pace of the game. But the Aggies have a pretty stout line. They have a pretty decent defense, but they did lose a lot of pieces on that D-line. So if Oklahoma State wins the game, it's definitely by running the ball. We're now moving on to our Thursday, December 28th games at 2:15 on ESPN. We have 6-6 Rutgers versus 7-5 Miami Hurricanes. This is the Bad Boy Mowers Pinstripe Bowl. This is going to be I'm pretty sure this is in Fenway Park, but it will be in Boston. Rutgers is a 1-point favorite here, so this game is virtually a pick-em. The over-under is 40.5. They have this game being a very low-scoring game. The reason 6-6 Rutgers is favored over Miami is because Miami has a lot of guys leaving. So Tyler Van Dyke, the quarterback, he is gone. He did transfer to Wisconsin. The backup quarterback, Riley Williams, broke his arm, so he's not playing. So they do have Jakari Brown starting at quarterback. Brown hasn't thrown a pass since the middle of last season. So we're also going into this game blind because we have a third stringer playing that no one has actually seen play this season. So we just don't know what to expect from him as of right now. For Rutgers, their whole team is back. They have a very stout defense. They do not have a good offense. They can decently run the ball, pretty physical, and they do have a very physical defense. So that's their claim to fame, is their D-line. Miami also has had a lot of players go into the portal, so they also had a lot of players declare for the draft. Their entire secondary practically did declare for the draft, both safeties, so they are down a lot of pieces. Looking at the team stats here, Rutgers comes in. They're averaging 22.6 points per game on offense. Miami, 32.1 points per game. And on defense, Rutgers gives up 21.0 points per game. Miami gives up 22.1 points per game. So this game is definitely going to be a low-scoring game. I have Miami, though, getting the win, 23-17. So I'm going with that +1, and I'm going with the under. Could Rutgers win this game? Definitely. Miami has a lot of players missing, so just based off of their defense, Rutgers definitely has a chance, but I do have Miami squeaking by here. The next game that we'll be looking at is at 9:15 on ESPN. We have number 14 Arizona sitting at 9-3 versus number 12 Oklahoma sitting at 10-2. This is the Valero Alamo Bowl, and Arizona is 2.5-point favorites here, and the over/under is 62.5. So they have this game being a pretty high-scoring game here. For Arizona, they are being led by Jed Fish. They kind of came out of nowhere this season. Fafita did fill in at the quarterback position, and he basically went off. He was the backup. He got called up around maybe the second or third week, and he never gave the job up since then. They've scored a lot of points, and they have a really stout defense. For Oklahoma, Dylan Gabriel was their leader on offense. He was their quarterback. He put up a really good season, but he has since transferred. So he has since transferred to Oregon. He is gone. So they're without their quarterback. That's a massive loss there. They are leaderless on the field. But they do have a 5-star quarterback in the wings. That's Jackson Arnold. He's probably going to be getting the nod at the quarterback position. But that's pretty big shoes to fill, because Dylan Gabriel did get some Heisman votes. He did put up some pretty big numbers. Arizona is the favorite. Now, had Oklahoma had their full complete team, I definitely think that they would be the favorite as of right now. It's just we don't know what we're getting with Jackson Arnold. That's what makes college football so weird right now, is the transfer portal. A lot of guys have gone into the portal prior to the bowl game. So we're getting backups playing that we've never actually seen play. So we are also going into this game kind of blind. I do have the Sooners getting the win here, 31-28. So I'm going with that plus 2.5. And like we said, we'll be going with the under as of right now. Now, Arizona could definitely win this game. They are the favorite as of right now. They do have the better team without Dylan Gabriel. I'm just basically going off of the fact that I think Arnold has probably been getting a lot of snaps. Oklahoma does have a pretty decent defense, so I do have them getting the win here. The next game that we're looking at is at 11 a.m. on ESPN, so a pretty early game. We have number 24 SMU sitting at 11-2 versus 6-6 Boston College. This is the Wasabi Fenway Bowl, and SMU is 10-point favorites here. Okay, so this is the game that's actually going to be at Fenway Stadium here. So SMU, they did lose Peyton Stone for the season. He did hurt his leg. So they're actually going to be rolling with backup quarterback Kevin Jennings. But Kevin Jennings did play in the American Conference Championship. They did win that game, and they won it pretty handily. So Rhett Lashley has a pretty stacked team here. They are very deep at the quarterback position. They have a lot of playmakers. They can throw it. They can run it. They have great pass catchers. They have a pretty good defense. For Boston College, they are a run-heavy team. So they do have Castellanos as the quarterback. He's thrown for about 2,400 yards, and he's 43 yards from closing in on 1,000 yards rushing. So like you said, a very run-heavy team, but they do give up a lot of points. So looking at the total team stats here, SMU does average 40.6 points per game. Boston College averages 25.0 points per game. And on defense, SMU gives up 17.4 points per game. Boston College gives up a whopping 29.5 points per game. So SMU is definitely the better team. That's why they are favored by such a wide spread. I have SMU getting the win here, 35-24, covering the spread, and I'm going with the over. The next game that we're looking at is at 5:45 on ESPN. Number 18, NC State at 9-3 versus number 25, Kansas State, sitting at 8-4. This is the Pop-Tarts Bowl. Kansas State is 2.5-point favorites here, and the over-under is 47.5. So we're finally getting into that top 25 on top 25 matchups, because the bowl games are getting better and better as we get closer to the new year. NC State. So they have Brennan Armstrong at quarterback. This is a run-heavy team. They don't have a good offense, but they have a really stout defense. They get after the quarterback. They get a lot of pressure. They get a lot of stacks. Kansas State, they have a very good coach, but their biggest issue is Will Howard, who was their star quarterback. He did go into the transfer portal also. He is gone, transferring to USC. That's a massive loss. They also lost their offensive coordinator, Klein, to the Aggies. That's also a big loss. They have some changes at the coaching positions. They have a massive change at the quarterback position. But this is a really good team. So NC State, they do average 26.8 points per game. Kansas State averages 37.8 points per game, but that was with Will Howard. And on defense, NC State gives up 20.2 points per game. Kansas State gives up 21.2 points per game. So both teams have pretty decent defenses. Kansas State, even though Howard's gone, they do have Giddens at the running back position. He's closing in on 1,100 yards. So look for them to try to make up for the loss at the quarterback position and try to keep the ball on the ground. I do have Kansas State getting a very close win here, 28-24, covering the spread, and I'll be going with the over. The next game that we'll be looking at, we're now moving on to our Friday, December 29th games at 12 p.m. on ESPN. Number 22, Clemson at 8-4 versus 7-5 Kentucky Wildcats. This is the Tax Slayer Gator Bowl. Clemson, 4.5-point favorites here, and the over-under is 46.5. Clemson, they had a pretty shaky offense this year. They do have a lot of question marks on the offensive side of the ball. A lot of people want Dabo to finally test the transfer portal, try to get some weapons at the wide receiver position. They do have Clay Klubnik, though, at quarterback. He was a previous 5-star. They do have weapons there at the running back, but they have had a lot of fumbles. But they do have the number 1 total defense in all of college football. They have a really good defense. They have a really good D-line. So look for them to try to take control of the trenches in this game. For Kentucky, obviously, they have an okay offense, but they're basically a defensive-focused team, usually led by Mark Stoops. But they have a really good running back at Davis. For the quarterback position, obviously, Leary had a really slow start this year, but the last 4 weeks he did go off. He's closing in on 2,500 yards, 23 touchdowns, 10 picks. A lot of that was done the last couple weeks of the season. But obviously, we know why Clemson is the favorite here. They have a defense. They're going to get after the quarterback position. Look for them to force some turnovers from Leary. I have Clemson getting the win here. 28-17. Covering the spread, but I'll also be going with the under, though. I just think that this game could potentially be a low-scoring game. The next game that we're looking at 2 p.m. on CBS, number 19 Oregon State at 8-4 versus number 16 Notre Dame at 9-3. This is the Tony the Tiger Sun Bowl. Notre Dame 6.5-point favorites here. The over-under is 41.5. We were robbed of having a really good game here because basically both of these teams are completely depleted. For Oregon State, the head coach Smith, he did move on to Michigan State, so he will not be coaching this game. And he brought their 5-star backup quarterback with him, so they're depleted there. DJU, who was their star quarterback, he is now gone. He did go into the transfer portal. So they're going to be rolling with their 3rd-string quarterback. This team is completely depleted. So they're not the team that we've had the whole season. That's just one side effect of basically 2023 college football is basically everyone goes into the portal the moment the season ends, and these teams just don't look the same. But Notre Dame, obviously, they had Sam Hartman, who transferred over from Wake Forest. He had a pretty decent year, closing in on 2,700 yards, 24 touchdowns, 8 picks. But he just declared for the NFL draft, so he's not going to be playing. So Notre Dame will be rolling with their backup quarterback. So we were robbed of a DGU versus Sam Hartman matchup here. Both guys are gone, but they do have Estime at the running back position, closing in on 1,400 yards, and he has 18 rushing touchdowns. Looking at the total team stats here, Oregon State averages 33.8 points per game, but that was obviously with DJU, and Notre Dame averages 39.1 points per game, but that was obviously with Sam Hartman. And on defense, Oregon State gives up 21.5 points per game. Notre Dame gives up 16.6 points per game. Notre Dame definitely has a top 10 defense. They're going to get after the 3rd-string quarterback for the Beavers. I have Notre Dame getting the win here. 27-17, covering the spread, and I'm going with the over. The next game that we're looking at 3:30 p.m. on ESPN, 9-3 Memphis versus 7-5 Iowa State. This is the AutoZone Liberty Bowl. Iowa State, pretty big favorites here. They're 10.5-point favorites here. The over-under is 57.5. Memphis has a really good offense, so they're going to be looking to go vertical. They definitely have the better playmakers at every single position. They have Hennigan at quarterback, closing in on 3,600 yards, 28 touchdowns, 9 picks. They have Watson at running back, closing in on 1,100 rushing yards, 14 touchdowns. They have Taylor at wide receiver, closing in on 1,000 yards receiving. Like we said, they have the deeper offensive roster. But Iowa State, a very physical team. They just start out the season really slow, had some pretty bad losses, but they did take control of the season's second half. They're always really physical. They always look to shut down the run and control the line of scrimmage. Looking at the team stats here, you have Memphis coming in. They do average 39.7 points per game. Iowa State averages 26.3 points per game. And on defense, Memphis gives up a lot of points. They give up 29.0 points per game, but Iowa State gives up 21.7 points per game. So even though Memphis has the better offense, I have Iowa State's defense traveling. It always travels for bowl games. I have them winning 27-24. So I do not have them covering the spread. I'm going with that plus 10.5. That's a massive spread. And I also think that this game will be under. The next game that we're looking at is our final game of our Part 3 series here, and we're finally getting into the New Year's 6 games at 8 p.m. on ESPN. We have a top 10 on top 10 matchup. Number 9, Missouri at 10-2 versus number 7, Ohio State Buckeyes at 11-1. This is the Goodyear Cotton Bowl Classic. The Buckeyes are 0.5 favorites here, so not even a full point. This game is a pick-em virtually, and the over-under 48.5. So a pretty close game for being that high scoring. When you look at Missouri, they have a really good offense. They have Cook at quarterback. He's closing in on 3,200 yards. He has 20 touchdowns. He has 6 picks. They have Schrader at running back. He's closing in on 1,500 yards rushing. They have Burden the third at wide receiver, closing in on 1,200 yards. The Buckeyes, Kyle McCord, the quarterback, did go into the transfer portal. I think he's transferring to Syracuse as of right now. So they are down their starting quarterback. So they're probably going to be rolling with 5-star Max Brown. But Max Brown was beaten out by Kyle McCord, and McCord wasn't very good. So we don't know how good Max Brown is just because we haven't seen him play as of yet. There's a lot of question marks there. But just looking at these team stats, the Tigers do come in. They average 34.1 points per game. Buckeyes 32.8 points per game. But the big difference is on defense. So Missouri gives up 22.3 points per game. Ohio State gives up 11.0 points per game. They have the number 2 defense. They get after it. Look for them to stack the line here. Look to shut down Schrader at running back and force Cook to have to throw some passes under pressure. That's what the Buckeyes are going to try to do. We don't know if they'll be able to rely on Brown at quarterback. They do have one of the best wide receiver cores in the country. They still have Marvin Harrison Jr., they still have Egbuka, so they are loaded. As of right now, as far as I know, they're both playing in this game. They haven't said anything different. So look for the Buckeyes. This is a tough one here because without the quarterback, but I do have the Buckeyes winning 27-20, covering the spread, but I am going with the under. So that's the end of our Part 3 series for the best bets. Hit that like button and subscribe. If you have any comments, drop them below, and I'll make sure to respond. Thanks.